here comes the golden years. The time to travel the world, sip wine in Paris, and finally figure out what smart luggage actually does. Sounds great, right? But what if I told you that dream trip could turn into a nightmare? See, people say travel is magical, but they forget to mention the lost luggage, scam artists, bad knees, and surprise hospital visits. The reality? If you're over 70, you're not just booking a vacation, you're negotiating with fate. Welcome to Buddhist Wisdom for the Elderly, where we explore life's journeys with humor, mindfulness, and a gentle reminder to pack extra meds. Today, we're breaking down the 7 hidden dangers of senior travel, the stuff they never put in the brochures. Take Elisa, 75, thrilled to see Paris. But on day 2, she slipped outside a cafe and spent the rest of her trip admiring hospital ceilings instead of the Eiffel Tower. Sound fun? Didn't think so. So, should you still travel? Absolutely. But only if you travel smart. And stick around for part number 6 because it's the one nobody talks about. How even the best trip can leave you feeling lost, overwhelmed, or unexpectedly homesick. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. If you find this helpful or at least entertaining, hit like and subscribe so we can reach 1,000 subscribers and keep making videos that save you from travel disasters. All right, let's dive in, and please, watch your step. 1. The illusion of escape. Why travel may not bring the peace you seek traveling. The great escape, the adventure, the breath of fresh air. But sometimes instead of feeling like a grand adventure, it feels more like, well, like you're lost in a foreign land, longing for your own bed, wondering why you ever left in the first place. Now, nobody really talks about this part of travel, especially for seniors. There's an unspoken pressure to enjoy every moment. But let's be honest. Sometimes, after a long day of navigating airports, strange food, and new surroundings, you just want something familiar. Your chair, your tea, your usual quiet spot where the world makes sense. Science calls this decision fatigue and cognitive overload, when too many new stimuli tire out the brain. As we age, our ability to quickly adjust to new environments slows down. What used to feel exciting now feels exhausting, like the world is just too much. This is why some seniors feel anxious or even depressed while traveling. The Buddha understood this. He often spoke about samsara, the endless cycle of movement, searching, grasping for something out there to bring us happiness. But what if happiness isn't in the next destination? What if it's already here? Take Mary, for example. She had spent months planning a trip to Japan, excited to experience its rich culture. But when she arrived, she felt overwhelmed. Strange sounds, unfamiliar customs, the discomfort of not knowing the language. She called her daughter in tears, saying she just wanted to come home. But then something shifted. She stopped trying to force herself to enjoy everything and instead practiced presence. She took slow walks, let go of expectations, allowed herself to simply be in the experience rather than control it. And suddenly, she found beauty in small moments, watching cherry blossoms fall, sipping tea in silence. So if you travel and find yourself feeling lost or lonely, don't rush to do everything. Slow down. Let the experience come to you. Find small familiar comforts, a warm drink, a favorite book, a peaceful moment. Practice mindfulness. The real journey isn't to another place, it's to being present with yourself. Sometimes travel teaches us not just about the world, but about the deep longing we carry within ourselves. And in the end, maybe home is not a place, but a state of mind. 2. The fragile body. How travel tests your health and impermanence. Traveling in your 70s. It's not quite the free-spirited adventure it was in your 20s, when you could survive on 3 hours of sleep, a gas station sandwich, and the sheer force of your own youthful arrogance. Back then, your body was like a rental car. No need to check the oil, just drive it hard and return it in whatever condition you left it. But now your body is more like an antique car. requires regular maintenance, doesn't handle bumpy roads well, and needs premium fuel just to get going in the morning. And yet, the call of adventure still beckons. You see a travel brochure with golden beaches and charming cobblestone streets, and you think, yes, that's where I need to be. I will sip wine by the ocean, wander ancient streets, and feel as free as I did in my youth. But the body, dear friend, is not a travel brochure. The body is an aging Buddhist monk who sits you down and says, you think you are going to run around Europe without consequences? Let's see what your knees have to say about that. Take Walter, for example. Walter is 74. Good guy. Big dreams. Thought a 2-week Mediterranean cruise would be just the thing to refresh his soul. On the 4th night, just as he was getting into the rhythm of leisure, his chest suddenly decided to throw a tantrum. Tightness, pressure, the kind of feeling that makes you think, I probably should have listened to my doctor instead of that little voice in my head that said, hey, you're fine. Now, here's the thing about having a medical emergency in the middle of the ocean. There are no hospitals in the ocean. The ship had a medical team, sure, but there's only so much they can do when the nearest hospital is a country away and you're floating in a giant metal buffet line. Walter ended up needing an emergency evacuation, and do you know what a helicopter ride from a cruise ship costs? Let's just say his relaxing vacation cost more than his first house. Here's where it gets interesting. Walter had no idea that his insurance didn't cover international emergencies. That's the thing about fine print. When you're young, you ignore it. When you're old, you still ignore it. But now, it bites you harder. So let's talk reality. The Buddha said suffering comes from attachment. Like being attached to the idea that you can travel like you're 25 when your knees say, buddy, we need a rest day. Traveling at this stage in life requires a little wisdom, a little planning, and a healthy respect for the fact that impermanence applies to cartilage too. If you're going to travel, do it wisely. Check in with the mechanic first. That means your doctor. Get the full inspection, check under the hood, and make sure you're cleared for takeoff. Know where the hospitals are. If you're going somewhere new, find out where the nearest good one is before you need it. Because finding a hospital is a terrible vacation activity. Buy the real travel insurance. The kind that covers medical evacuations, because getting airlifted off a cruise ship is more expensive than you think. Bring your meds like your life depends on them. Because, well, it kind of does. The great cosmic joke is that we spend our youth wanting to grow up and our later years pretending we're still young. But real freedom, the kind you're actually looking for, isn't in pretending you're invincible. It's in accepting what is, working with it, and traveling in a way that honors where you're at now. So go ahead, travel, see the world. Just don't forget to pack a little wisdom along with your sunscreen. 3. The price of trust. How scammers prey on the unaware. Money. You spend your whole life making it, saving it, trying to be responsible with it. And then, one wrong move, poof. Gone. Snatched away by someone who saw you as their personal lottery ticket. See, the thing about travel is that it fills us with this beautiful, childlike wonder. We're wide-eyed, excited, ready to trust in the goodness of humanity. And that's wonderful. But unfortunately, not everyone out there is sitting under a Bodhi tree contemplating kindness. Some are sitting in a tiny internet cafe, dreaming up ways to separate you from your retirement fund. Take Albert, for example. Albert, 76, was a retired teacher. Sharp guy. Spent decades shaping young minds, always the one people went to for advice. And yet, when it came to booking his dream trip to Bali, he got taken for a ride before he even got into a taxi. It was a deal too good to pass up. A beachfront resort, private bungalows, a price that made him feel like he'd outsmarted the whole travel industry. He clicked book now with a sense of victory. He was going to wake up to the sound of waves, sip fresh coconut water on a sun-drenched terrace. Life was good, until he arrived. No resort, no friendly welcome, just an empty lot and a few confused chickens wandering around. The only thing more gone than his booking? His money. Now, let's pause here for a moment, because this is where the Buddha would lean in, give you that knowing smile and say, everything is impermanent. Yes, including money, including the sense of certainty that comes from believing you got a good deal, and certainly including the belief that you're too wise to fall for a scam. So how do we keep our wallets and our dignity intact? Book through reputable agencies. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If it definitely seems too good to be true, congratulations, you're about to pay for someone else's vacation. Use credit cards, not cash. Because nothing says I'd like a refund quite like a bank with fraud protection. Get real travel insurance. Not the cross your fingers and hope for the best kind, the kind that actually covers you. Be open-hearted, but not open-walleted. Trust people, but also trust that some people are up to no good. Albert eventually made it home, a little poorer, but a lot wiser. He laughed when he told me, I went looking for enlightenment in Bali. Turns out, I found it at my bank, filling out a fraud report. And isn't that the way? Sometimes life gives us lessons in ways we don't expect. We just have to roll with it, keep a sense of humor, and maybe next time, book a hotel that actually exists. 4. Running on empty. Why travel exhausts the body and mind. The grand adventure of travel. The thrill of stepping onto an airplane, feeling like an explorer of old, setting forth into the great unknown, only to realize about 3 days in that your body was not consulted in these plans. You see, the mind loves adventure. The mind is like an overexcited puppy. Let's see everything. Let's go everywhere. Let's wake up at 5 a.m. and catch the sunrise over the Eiffel Tower, and then walk 10 miles through Rome, and then take a train to Barcelona for dinner. Meanwhile, the body, well, the body is like an old dog lying on the porch, lifting one eye just long enough to say, you go ahead. I'll be right here, contemplating the meaning of existence and enjoying this nice, comfortable patch of ground. Take George, for example. George, 75 years young, full of stories, full of life, still in possession of the belief that he could travel like he was 25. He and his wife booked a grand 10-day European tour. London, Paris, Rome, Barcelona. Every day packed with sightseeing, early wake-up calls, and more cobblestone streets than his knees had ever encountered in one lifetime. By day 3, George's enthusiasm was running on fumes. His legs ached. His back had issued an official complaint. He was seeing famous landmarks through a fog of exhaustion, nodding off in cathedrals and questioning why he had ever left the recliner in his living room. Somewhere between the Vatican and the next historical walking tour, it hit him. I need a vacation from my vacation. Now, the Buddha had a thing or two to say about suffering. He pointed out that it's not so much what's happening, it's our resistance to what's happening that makes it painful. The body is saying, can we slow down? And the mind is saying, but we've already paid for this full-day excursion. The tension between them, that's the suffering. So here's a revolutionary idea. What if travel wasn't about how much you see, but how deeply you experience it? What if you took rest days, lingered over meals, and honored your body instead of pushing it to the limits? So if you're setting off on an adventure, consider. Plan rest days. You wouldn't run a marathon without breaks, so why try to sightsee like one? Don't cram in every attraction. The Mona Lisa will still be there if you take a nap first. Drink water, eat real food, and sleep like it's your job. Choose comfort over speed. Direct flights, longer stays, elevators over 5-story staircases. Because at this stage in life, the real adventure isn't in how much you do, it's in how fully you enjoy whatever it is you are doing. And sometimes the greatest joy of travel is simply sitting somewhere new, sipping coffee, and watching the world go by. 5. One misstep, a lifetime of pain, the hidden danger of falls. Aging is a practice in letting go. letting go of how things used to be, letting go of the illusion that we are in control, letting go of the idea that our bodies will always carry us the way they once did. And yet, letting go does not mean giving up. It simply means learning how to move through the world with a little more gentleness, a little more awareness. The Buddha said, "To walk safely through the maze of life, one needs the light of wisdom and the guidance of mindfulness." But the truth is, most of us don't think about walking until we fall. Morgana had always wanted to visit Florence. She imagined the golden light on the old buildings, the smell of espresso in the morning, the sound of footsteps on ancient stone. She had waited years for this trip, and at 78, she finally booked it. She felt ready, strong, independent. But the thing about Florence, or any old city really, is that it was built for people who lived centuries ago. It was not designed for tired knees, fragile hips, or the occasional dizziness that comes with age. It was built for another time, another body. On her third evening, just as the sun was setting, Morgana stepped onto the street. She looked up for just a moment at the way the last light touched the cathedral dome, and then in an instant, she was falling. There is a strange moment in falling. A brief second where you know it's happening, but there's nothing you can do. No way to stop it, no way to change course. Just gravity, just the body, just the sudden impact of the world meeting you where you are. Morgana landed hard. First her knee, then her hip. The street was suddenly unfamiliar, foreign, not because it was Italy, but because she was now part of it. Lying there, breathless, shaken, in pain. She spent the rest of her trip in a hospital, staring at the ceiling instead of the art she had come to see. And when she finally made it home, she spent months recovering, months learning how to trust her body again. The truth is, we don't like to think about falling, but avoiding reality doesn't make it any less real. When we resist aging, when we ignore our limits, when we move through the world as if we are still 30, we create suffering for ourselves. We fall harder, and in more ways than one. So how do we meet reality with kindness? Choose places that meet you where you are now, not where you once were. Some destinations are more forgiving than others. Wear shoes that support you. It's not about style, it's about honoring the body that carries you. Use a cane or walking stick if you need one. Let go of embarrassment. Accept help where it is needed. Move slowly, rest often. Listen to the signals your body is giving you. You are not here to prove anything. You are here to experience, to be fully present. Morgana later told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I was so focused on the journey, I forgot that my body was part of it too." And isn't that the practice? To move through life awake, aware, accepting, to travel not as we wish we were, but as we truly are. There is so much peace in meeting yourself exactly where you are. 6. The invisible enemy. How travel exposes you to hidden illnesses. There's a certain romance to travel, the idea of stepping onto a plane and landing in a world unlike your own. The hum of a new city, the scent of unfamiliar spices, the energy of a place that has lived and breathed long before you arrived. But travel, like all things in life, comes with its hidden layers. You see, the Buddha often spoke about impermanence, how everything is in a state of change, including ourselves. Our bodies are not the same as they were in our youth. Once, we could eat from any street cart, drink from any tap, and walk through any crowd without a second thought. But now, the body, like an aging temple, requires more care, more gentleness. Let me tell you about Kale. She was 76, and after spending years dreaming of seeing the floating markets of Thailand, she finally booked her trip. It was the adventure of a lifetime. She could already see herself drifting down the river, the warm air on her skin, the vibrant colors of the market reflecting in the water. She had been careful. She packed her medications. She got her vaccinations. But there was something about the excitement of the moment, the joy of finally being there, that made her let her guard down. One evening, she sat in a small local restaurant, the kind where laughter filled the air and the scent of lemongrass and chili danced around her. A kind waiter suggested a local specialty, a dish with fresh herbs and raw vegetables. Kale hesitated. She had heard the warnings about raw foods, but in that moment, she wanted to be fully present. She wanted to taste life as it was, not through the cautious lens of an outsider. By morning, the adventure had taken a different turn. Fever, stomach cramps, a deep exhaustion that sank into her bones. What was meant to be a journey of discovery became a week confined to a hotel room, missing out on everything she had dreamed of. She later told me that lying there, sick in an unfamiliar place, she had a realization. We don't just travel with our minds, we travel with our bodies too. And if we don't honor that, the body will remind us. The Buddha once compared the body to a fragile clay pot, strong in appearance, but vulnerable. It must be cared for, respected. And so, as much as we long to experience the world fully, wisdom is knowing how to do so without harming ourselves. If you plan to travel, take precautions. Wash your hands frequently and carry hand sanitizer, not out of fear, but out of mindfulness. Wear a mask in crowded places, not because the world is dangerous, but because your body deserves care. Drink only bottled or filtered water. Avoid ice and raw foods in places where sanitation is uncertain. The experience of a place is not in a single meal, it is in being well enough to enjoy it all. Strengthen your immune system before you go. Take probiotics, eat nourishing foods, and give your body the support it needs. Kale eventually recovered. She returned home, and when she told me her story, she laughed softly and said, "I wanted to taste the world. I just didn't think it would taste like antibiotics and regret." Travel is a beautiful thing. But remember, it is not just about where you go. It is also about how you go. Go gently, go wisely, and go in a way that allows you to truly be present for every moment. 7. Letting go of control. The greatest travel lesson from the Buddha. The older we get, the more we realize control is an illusion. When we were younger, we had this belief that with enough planning, enough preparation, we could make things go our way. But life, especially travel, has a way of laughing at our plans. Flights get delayed, bags get lost. The beautiful beachfront hotel turns out to be a mile away from the ocean. And if you're not careful, your mind follows the same path, spiraling into frustration, anxiety, and regret. Science calls this declining adaptability. As we age, our ability to cope with sudden change becomes more challenging. We like our routines, our familiar comforts. Sudden disruptions can feel overwhelming. The Buddha had a very simple response to this. Expect the unexpected. The only guarantee in life is impermanence. Everything changes. The key is not to resist it, but to flow with it. Take Frank, an 80-year-old who had meticulously planned a trip to Greece. Everything was scheduled down to the hour. But when his flight got canceled, followed by a lost suitcase, followed by a sudden rainstorm that ruined his perfect day in Santorini, he nearly lost it. Until he remembered something his meditation teacher once told him. You don't have to like the present moment. You just have to stop fighting it. So he did. He stopped clinging to what the trip should have been, and instead embraced what it was. He spent the day talking to locals, sharing stories, finding joy in the unexpected. And by the time his suitcase arrived 2 days later, he had already discovered that sometimes the best memories come from the things that don't go as planned. So when you travel, breathe through the chaos. Delays, changes, surprises, they are part of the journey. Let go of expectations. The world is not here to meet your plans. It is simply unfolding, as it always has. Find beauty in the unexpected. Sometimes getting lost is the best thing that can happen. In the end, travel, like life, isn't about control. It's about learning how to move with life rather than against it. Because the greatest journey you will ever take is learning to surrender. Conclusion. So, there you have it. The 7 hidden dangers of senior travel that nobody warns you about until it's too late. We talked about the risks, the reality checks, and most importantly, how to travel wisely. Because travel at this stage in life isn't about proving you can still do it, it's about doing it in a way that actually feels good. We've seen how travel isn't just about picking a destination. It's about managing your health, your safety, your money, your energy, and even your emotions. Because whether it's avoiding scams, preventing falls, preparing for medical surprises, or realizing that getting away doesn't always mean escaping yourself, it all comes back to one thing: traveling with awareness. The Buddha once said, "Wherever you go, there you are." So before you book that ticket, ask yourself, am I traveling in a way that brings me joy, or am I just running toward the next thing? Because the best journeys aren't measured in miles, they're measured in how present you are for them. Now, if you found this video helpful, or at least entertaining, hit that like button and subscribe. We're on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us keep making videos that help seniors travel smarter, live better, and laugh along the way. And before you go, let us know in the comments, what's your biggest travel worry? Or if you've got a story about a trip gone wrong, we'd love to hear it. After all, wisdom is best when it's shared. Safe travels, and remember, sometimes the best trip is the one where you just sit in your favorite chair, sip your tea, and enjoy the adventure of being exactly where you are. See you in the next one.